Get that float rig cleared, we've got 4 more kids coming through. Technician Marn Colt shouted from beneath the arching entrance as the final shuttle ramp lowered. The sky above Lorne Axis 3 was calm, striped with low-altitude transit lanes and a few blinking warning lights from orbit-bound drones. Banners of blue and silver fluttered from every tower. Today marked 5 years since the first spire was raised on this rock. Families poured into Central Promenade. Scientists, workers, even off-shift security men walking without rifles. No threat existed here. Marn stepped back from the parade corridor as children jogged past, wearing replica survey helmets and laughing through filtered masks. The ground beneath them was fully terraformed now, breathable without assist, and the domes had begun phasing out. Beside the dais, the commemorative plaque shone clean. Lorne Axis 3, Earth's outpost of peace. No one saw the danger coming. Above them, just past visibility, orbit control pinged a static object, a refraction. Probably debris caught in the exosphere. No alarm was raised. It didn't emit drive signatures, and no known flight path intersected civilian airspace. Marn didn't know about that blip. He just noticed something odd, a tremor in the ground, like a deep, buried thump under his feet. At the same moment, Savern Dak, stationed aboard Herald Station beyond the Kiever Belt, was addressing a minor trade conflict between 2 mid-range freighters. His attention was drawn to a sudden screen freeze. A live feed from Lorne halted mid-transmission. It wasn't the signal that worried him. It was what flashed, for a fraction of a second, before the screen went black. A vertical streak through the clouds, fast, narrow, Back on the surface, Marn raised his wrist display and blinked at the signal loss from central comms. Another tremor followed, sharper. Then silence. Not quiet. A dead, wrong stop in ambient motion. Birds that had been engineered into the environment dropped mid-flight. 2 security officers turned instinctively, one reaching for a communicator. The display flickered, then shattered from a direct concussive wave that hit them head-on. The rod struck. Kinetic impactors, fired from high orbit, tore through every critical node in the colony. Administration dome, gone. School block, flattened. Transit hub, incinerated. The impacts were so clean and fast there was no fire. Just crushing atmospheric collapse, followed by total disintegration. Shock waves through soil, steel, and bone in identical directions. Marn didn't feel the second hit. He'd been pinned under the remains of the comms mast after the first. His right arm crushed, his eyes dazed but functional. He looked up and saw a child's toy still spinning near his feet, a gravity ball with birthday streamers stuck to its seam. It stopped spinning before he could register the name on its tag. All colony feeds terminated in sequence. The AI backup stored at Herald Station tried to reinitiate disaster protocols but failed. The data link to every active relay on Lorne Axis 3 had gone cold. Savern Dak ordered emergency routing to secondary channels and shouted for outbound intercepts. But by the time orbital scans came back, the threat was already gone. Not destroyed, gone. As if the platform that launched the strike had never existed. In Terran Assembly Hall back on Earth, the reaction was delayed. Not because of incompetence, but because no one expected an unprovoked kinetic event on a civilian-only site under peace accords. News broke not with press conferences, but with archival security footage scraped from last-minute personal devices synced to off-world servers. One frame showed a crater where a schoolyard had been. Another showed a scientist crawling out of a shattered dome, only to be crushed by a collapsing beam. These clips weren't propaganda. They were evidence of slaughter. No military assets were stationed within 2 jumps of the zone. It was policy. Marn was found alive by a returning scout vessel 12 hours later, clinging to a shattered perimeter wall with a broken collarbone and a single message repeatedly tapped into his wrist pad. "We were supposed to be safe." That phrase would later appear on the side of every memorial built in Lorne's memory. Initial analysis pointed to the Thrax Dominion. Kinetic rods left no emissions, but fragment readings near crater edges matched alloys exclusive to Dominion forge cycles. And the trajectory of entry. Clean vertical insertion, fit with their known deployment patterns, though none were officially acknowledged. The Dominion claimed no involvement. Their spokesperson called the tragedy a result of buffer zone destabilization and added that unauthorized colonization activities may lead to unfortunate outcomes. It wasn't a denial. It was a smirking dismissal. Earth didn't declare war, not that day, not the next. Instead, silence followed. Sovereign Dak didn't sleep for 3 cycles. He returned to Earth, reviewed all Dominion transmissions, and requested a closed briefing with Strategic Executor Voren Telsk. His report was short. They called it buffer recalibration. Our civilians called it home. Lorne Axis 3 had been established under shared exploration rights. No Dominion crafts had signaled protest. There were no territorial warnings, no sanctions, nothing. What the Threx delivered was not an accident. Inside a darkened vault buried under Terran Command's Southridge installation, Voren Telsk stood before a sealed biometric panel. He didn't unlock it. Not yet. Above him, the names of every civilian victim scrolled across a deep wall display: 2,491 children, 3,082 engineers, over 82,000 total lost. At a systems checkpoint, Kadric Yorn reviewed planetary defense telemetry. He highlighted no warning, no visible launch, no possibility of defense. He didn't speak after reading it. He simply turned off the monitor and walked out. Marn Colt, barely recovered, gave only one interview. His voice was even. I was calibrating float rigs. Next moment the sky cracked, and then it just ended. He paused. It wasn't war, it was practice. At that moment, Voren Telsk reached the vault again. This time, he scanned his palm. A red light flickered once, then unlocked. Initiate Directive Spectre, status of remaining Spectre cores. Voren Telsk's voice was flat, eyes fixed on the thermal thed render suspended above the table. 4 vaults unassigned, Kadric Yorn answered. 2 already maneuvering into drop arcs over Dominion sectors. He didn't blink. The light from the heads-up display cast long shadows over the table. Clean, sharp lines drawn across a war room that hadn't seen active use in over a decade. The room had no windows, just panel-lit maps and digital ink feeds. 5 Terran officials stood around the slab table. They weren't politicians. Every one of them had held a commission at some point, combat-tested, data-trained. No ceremony here, no speeches. The walls were soundproofed. Not for secrecy, Telsk preferred it quiet when things were about to change. The looped footage played again. Lorne Axis 3, playback, timestamp 27 seconds from total colony blackout. Wide shot of the central promenade. One of the scientists hands out flags. Children move toward a stage. A moment later, a tremor shakes the feed. Frame disrupts, frame clears. Frame cuts. No one in the room spoke. The Dominion's message had been layered through back channels. Buffer recalibration. It was a statement, not a claim, not a denial. Just terms they believed Earth would learn to accept. Telsk tilted the screen off. We're not filing a declaration. No one objected. Legislative panel expects a diplomatic response within the cycle, one of the observers added without commitment in his tone. They've scheduled the press window. Cancel it. A silence followed. Kadric handed him the authorization binder. It was red, rechained since its original encryption 17 years ago. The Spectre directive was locked beneath biometric, command layer, and retinal clearance. Telsk placed his hand flat against the binder's scan plate. A soft click registered. Command entry confirmed, the system stated. The contents weren't digital, not entirely. Protocols within Spectre were layered in hard-engraved substrates, designed to prevent manipulation, unauthorized replication, or forced shutdown. Yorn unrolled the first loadout profile. Deployment sequence requires synchronization across orbital vault cores. Minimum activation delay 7 hours. Full phase operation to be live in under 20. Telsk nodded. We're not going for visibility, only finality. Weapons platforms remained dormant. There are no weapons, Telsk replied, only exits. The table shifted. Panels slid open, revealing embedded control tablets. Dominion infrastructure grids lit up. Civilian, military, energy, data. Every node identified. Every potential exploit noted. Oren Deklar's voice patched in remotely. Routing pathways calibrated. Varnek's rotational drift exposes key relay towers during phase window Delta 9. The vaults will know when to strike. Deklar had never failed to deliver, though he'd never spoken more than 5 words at a time in front of a group. He'd built Spectre's core algorithms during a 5-year black site rotation. Telsk trusted him because he didn't want praise. He wanted clean architecture. No announcement, Telsk repeated. No message. The strike itself is the communication. It didn't need ships. The vaults carried nothing that resembled conventional ordnance. No thrusters, no visible entry signature. Each Spectre unit contained layered payloads. Cavitated disruption cores, atmospheric refraction nodes, and entropy logic sequencers, none of which left trails or signals. They infiltrated networks, tunneled into buried infrastructure, and waited for the phase lock to align. Telsk walked over to the relay wall, thumbed through the queue of proposed counteractions from the advisory corps. Every single one had been marked as insufficient. Public strategy violation. Spectre wasn't public. It wasn't designed for applause. Executor, said Yorn quietly. This'll change everything, no matter how it plays. Telsk didn't turn. It already has. Back in the side chamber, Communications Officer Juran Hal retrieved the Dominion's last recorded diplomatic burst. One sent 10 minutes after the Lorne massacre. The message was brief. Earth must accept the boundaries of negotiated zones. It wasn't even sent through secure lines. It was meant to be intercepted. Hal closed the file, then erased it from public archive submission. No further messaging would be exchanged until the vaults had completed their purpose. Telsk reviewed the final insertions. All Spectres report green? Confirmed, Yorn replied. Begin rotation masking. No Terran satellite must witness the drop. The heads-up displays registered flickers of movement across the outer band. Vaults, previously dormant, initiated slow module decoupling from inactive satellite debris clusters, like barnacles peeling off derelict hulls. Each unit initiated passive fall via gravity drag. No drive wake, no energy bloom, nothing traceable. Oran's voice came again. Sequence confirmed, vaults will reach orbital anchors within acceptable drift range. Kadric leaned toward the table. Do we notify planetary defense? No, Telsk said. If Spectre fails, there won't be anything left to defend. The binder resealed. Command line closed. In Earth's official records, nothing had changed. No meetings had occurred, no actions were logged. Outside the chamber, a clerk marked the strategic conference room as unused. In another region of the complex, Saverndock reviewed satellite sweep archives. He didn't ask what Spectre was. He simply noted the Dominion hadn't denied responsibility. They'd expected hesitation. They got a wall of silence. Dak tapped once against the interface, then turned the display off. As Telsk exited the chamber, he gave a single order into the secure line. Let them sleep. When they wake, they'll understand. All 3 just slipped orbit. Calm silence confirmed. No pings, no backscatter. It's buried clean. Kadric Yorn leaned over the calibration panel, tapping 2 sequence codes into the heads-up interface. The table lit with a ghost trail marking each Spectre vault's projected anchor point. Around him, the deployment suite remained dim by design. Engineers worked in subdued lighting to avoid glare bleed on spatial overlays. There was no talking beyond status confirmations. Everyone in this room knew the system didn't allow second chances. The Spectres weren't drones. They weren't ships. They were autonomous platforms built to wait, not chase. Each one carried an onboard memory core containing exactly 4 directives, no wireless interface, and a hardened magnetic kill loop that purged the unit after final activation. No Terran tech had ever been built this isolated. Kadric adjusted a pathing node. Vault 6's trajectory was lagging due to orbital drag from older debris rings. He dialed in a gravity pull adjustment using a counterspin torque sequence. It responded. He exhaled once and nodded. "They're holding drift at target intervals," said Intech Joris, seated behind him. His voice stayed even. "Final approach puts the inner three within synchronized latency of the primary shield grid. Payload quiet? Still sealed, nothing activated until vault lock timer expires." The Dominion's capital planet, Varnak, rotated slowly in the background feed. Clouds swept over the equatorial line. No defense cannons tracked the sky. Their threat net assumed anything capable of breaching low orbit would show heat. But these vaults used cold intra-descent. They free fell along a drop curtain disguised by dead satellite traffic, braking only with gyroscopic decouplers. No propulsion, no signatures, no flares. Cadric accessed Vault 2's sensor log. It had already moved past Varnak's third moon, hiding behind a decaying comm tower. He pinged the logic check for entropy anchor placement. One misalignment would displace the chain reaction window. The values returned green. No variance. "Mark all outer tier cores as static," he said. "We won't reroute once countdown starts." Dekler's voice filtered through the operations feed. "Varnak's pulse beacons have begun routine diagnostics. They've run 3 scans and missed all vaults." "They're not looking for nothing," Cadric muttered. The team didn't laugh, but a few smirks cracked around the table. These vaults had no active defenses, no armor plating. They were surgical architecture designed to burrow, anchor, then infect. Each vault carried a signal suppression array and entropy anchor. These weren't bombs. They were quiet collapses. "Vault 5 locked into orbital shadow," Joris reported. "Timestamp? 11 seconds off calculated sync." "Within margin," Cadric replied. "Mark it stable." On the opposite screen, Earth's own satellites fed back Dominion traffic patterns, civilian transports, cargo haulers, even planetary weather platforms. Not a single Dominion unit had noticed a thing. That's how Spectre was designed. I'm use. No recovery. No control after drop. And no human intervention once sealed. Vorin Telsk appeared briefly on the upper command stream. "Status of alts seeded," Cadric responded. "No drift anomalies. Payloads are dark, no known detection. Confirm latency chain for full trigger." "Running sim now," Joris answered. He tapped into the sync chart, watching each anchor show its offset ripple path. The chain lined up. 2 passes over the equator, 1 delayed burst near the polar relay towers, and a final lock beneath Varnak's shield grid. Trigger delay, 6 hours. Deployment sync, 98%. Minimum effective collapse threshold is met, Joris confirmed. Telsk nodded once. "Drop the comm relay feed. No further updates." The transmission ended. Cadric didn't sit. He crossed to the viewport, watching Vault 1 glide under a shell of decommissioned orbital platforms. For a second, it looked like a shadow within a shadow. Just dead mass, drifting on inertia. "Never thought we'd run this protocol," Joris said quietly, still watching his console. "Neither did I," Cadric admitted. "But we never lost 80,000 civilians in 1 hour before." On the far left screen, a faint flick from Vault 4 indicated tether lock with the Dominion satellite stub. It wasn't a hack, it was physical contact, a way to align timing pulses with planetary systems without triggering alerts. "You think they'll notice?" Joris asked. "Not before it's over," Cadric replied. That's the point. He checked the vault metrics one last time. Each unit's power signature remained inert. Life support systems were never installed. Cooling ran passively. Core logic pathways were built on static-state silicon that couldn't be wirelessly pinged. "You don't fight Spectre," he said under his breath. "You wake up wondering what failed." The ops room lights dimmed slightly. Not for effect, just auto-cycling into night shift. Nobody left their posts. One by one, the markers over Varnak solidified. Not targets, just locations that would stop functioning when the countdown ended. No radiation, no atmospheric interference, no evidence. Just failure. The tech officer at the back noted the time, 5 hours, 51 minutes, until full chain alignment. Cadric marked the final confirmation in the command log. Then he locked the screen. Next update comes after it's done, he said. Everyone clear comms? He looked at the planet one more time. We didn't launch anything, he said quietly. We just stopped waiting. Get that shield node back in sync before rotation hits 0 point. I don't care if it ran fine last cycle. Senior Architect Drav Lek, head of orbital diagnostics for the Varnic Planetary Defense Grid, barked into the intercom without waiting for a reply. He moved to the heads-up display near the north platform's calibration ring, where 6 shield towers showed minor phase variance. Nothing dangerous, just low-level flickers. Every system reported green, but Lek's instinct for failures had kept him employed longer than most. Echo anomaly, repeating every 11.4 seconds, came the reply from Technician Halvier across the third maintenance ring. We checked the primary buffer core, no overloads, all readouts nominal. Lek narrowed his eyes. Then find out why a functional system keeps echoing like it's got a ghost in the relay. Varnic's defense field cycled with the planet's moons. Every triple pass created a reset point. Used by the shield algorithm to restabilize grid strength after gravitational interference. Tonight marked the second full triple moon alignment of the cycle, and small deviations during that window could cascade across linked towers. The timing was critical. Back at the Terran operations layer, Oren Deckler monitored the vault logic through a time-dated burst channel. He sat alone, inside a shielded comm vault, connected only to the non-interactive vault pulse log. His job wasn't to interfere. He just needed to confirm phase lock. Vault 1 reporting passive match to Tower Arc 17, came the soft system feed. Signal suppression active. Phase, envelope, stable. Deckler said nothing. He made a mark on his notepad. Every Spectre vault had now completed its passive tether alignment. No power signatures, no communication loops. The final countdown had begun. Inside Varnek's central diagnostics wing, the shield cycle entered its flux window. A faint ripple passed across the dome surface, visible only through refracted light from the orbital triangulation beam. Lek adjusted the calibration dial, trying to identify the source of the rhythmic hiccup in the tower logic. Why is Tower 17 running a sub-second delay loop? He asked. Halvier hesitated. It's mirroring external drift input, but no satellite is flagged. Could be echoing residuals from a dead station. Dead stations don't broadcast on bounce loop compression, Halvier. Lek tapped into the raw data stream. A tight loop of sensor readings appeared, perfectly regular, just slightly outside spec. The margins weren't alarming, but they were wrong, and they were too consistent. At Dominion Fleet Command, a junior analyst flagged the anomaly during routine orbital traffic review. He saw a sequence of minor telemetry mismatches across shield towers 11 through 24. He routed the report to the senior analyst desk. No alert was triggered. Back in Earth's Ops Core, Cadric Yorn reviewed the vault telemetry summary. Varnak's shield grid is dancing right on our threshold, he told Oren through a direct pipe. Oran's voice remained quiet. That's the window. We don't adjust. You'll see it. No, Oren said. They'll assume it's themselves. Inside the Varnak Planetary Temple Dome, a priest initiated the traditional shielding prayer, a cultural ritual synchronized with the triple moon rise. The congregation bowed as the sky flickered softly overhead. No one noticed the brief interruption in the shield's resonance field. The arc didn't collapse. It simply paused. At the shield operations tower, Lek cross-referenced shield latency over the past 5 cycles. The same towers had reported inconsistencies at near-identical times, always during the moon arc reset, always with the same quiet blink. He checked the external orbit registry again. Nothing listed in that quadrant. He requested a wideband sweep from the outer sensor array. The sweep returned void. No reflected signals, no thermal bands. Something's in our orbit, he said to no one in particular. It's not showing up, but it's pulling signal drift. Halvier responded. Could be a phased mineral cloud. Lek cut him off. You ever see a mineral cloud generate identical signal intervals across 6 towers? No, sir. Exactly. Oren Deklar looked up from his log feed. The vaults had entered their final lock state. One more orbital pass and the entropy anchors would be in perfect alignment with Varnak's power conduits. No alarms had triggered. No system breach had been registered. Everything appeared routine. 3 minutes until stable chain initiation, came the system feed. In Varnak's tower command suite, Lek activated the emergency bypass on the shield loop. A full restart wasn't authorized, but he initiated a test cascade forcing each tower to run diagnostics independently of the central array. Tower 17 didn't respond. Helvier, get someone out there. I want physical confirmation that tower's running on internal logic, not borrowed rhythm. Yes, sir. In the Terran vault chamber, Oren updated the entry log. Physical sync confirmed across all Spectre platforms. Chain fully aligned. Comm silence engaged. The system echoed. He leaned back and closed the panel. There was no need to monitor the detachment sequence. Spectre's final phase had begun. Nothing could interfere now. Lek paced the walkway above the diagnostic core. Outside, the moons aligned into a crescent arc. The towers, for a brief second, all blinked out of sync. Just one pulse. He stopped walking. What was that? He asked aloud. Helvier stared at his monitor. I don't know. All towers just paused. They stared at the displays. Everything returned to green. Readouts resumed. No damage. No alerts. But something had changed. Lek turned slowly, eyes still locked on the screens. Rerun the entire sequence, he said. Helvier reached for the console. Nothing responded. Why are all towers reporting green when half of them are offline? Drovlek barked the words as he slammed his hand onto the input surface. The heads-up display stuttered for a moment, then resumed flashing status icons. Every single one marked normal. His team stared at the data feed in disbelief. 1 second earlier, the grid was functioning. The next, it wasn't. Not gradually, not locally. Every tower blinked out at once. Helvier, still standing near Tower 17's relay console, stared at his board. No alerts. No overload warnings. Just dead inputs, like the tower had never existed. Lek spun to the primary terminal. Try manual bypass. I did. The response queue isn't returning queries. Then pull the conduit chain and reroute through the inner loop. I can't. There is no inner loop. Systems that never failed, core defense frameworks built into Varnak's orbital structure, weren't responding. The command path had broken. Not jammed, not intercepted. Missing. The Dominion shield field, a layered hemisphere anchored to 24 orbital tower arrays, flickered once. Then it vanished. From the streets below, citizens lifted their heads as the sky's usual green haze faded completely. The planet was now exposed. In the control tower, Lek moved between consoles. One showed static. Another had reset to diagnostics mode. His hands moved faster. Then slower. He couldn't find a working terminal. On the orbital layer above Varnak, 4 autonomous satellites rotated out of sync. They began drifting away from the network without propulsion. Their control systems had severed link from Central Command. In Dominion Fleet Command, Data Officer Breck flagged the anomaly. His report read, multiple satellites losing telemetry lock, simultaneous drop. He filed it. Seconds later, his system cut off, mid-transmission. In every strategic node across the planet, laser towers powered down simultaneously. Not from attack, from core failure. In Varnak's outer city defense hub, backup systems came online and immediately collapsed again. The override keys failed. Generators did nothing. Each console listed the same 2 words. No note. Lek's palms trembled. He hit the table edge to snap himself back. Shut down non-essential operations, he ordered. Focus everything on comms. If we can send... The main room lights dimmed, then went out. No surge, no explosion, just total silence. No systems rebooted. On the surface, the street lamps in half the capital city flickered erratically, then died. Power junctions stalled, traffic systems shut off, rail pods froze mid-track. Inside the planetary shield temple, priests looked up as the protective arc over the dome disappeared. There was no sound, only the sight of naked stars above, where static light had always lingered. On Dominion Subchannel 9, Fleet Subcommander Jarnin activated Priority Beacon Relay. The signal coded clean, but it didn't transmit. The feed returned, no link established. Alvear stepped away from his terminal. "We're blind," he muttered. Lek didn't speak. He moved to the override cabinet and pulled the old analog failsafe switch. Nothing happened. Outside the capital, on the edge of Varnak's atmospheric rim, a merchant cruiser watched the shield grid vanish through its rear observation deck. The pilot called it in. No one responded. The cruiser turned to leave orbit, but the autopilot froze. Core logs deleted. Manual controls stalled. Its engines were not damaged. They were simply deactivated, as if someone had pressed a pause button on physics. Inside Earth's control facility, Rohan Deklar watched from a sealed vault. His hands remained still. He read the Spectre chain log, one line at a time. All Valks had triggered. Anchors had destabilized local coherence. Every relay inside Varnak's grid architecture had disconnected at the phase core. No explosion, just irreversible systemic failure. Deklar typed 2 words into the record: chain complete. Cadwick Yorn confirmed the downstream log. No interception events, no Dominion counteraction. Target system rolled into collapse sequence, total signal blackout. On Varnak, emergency shelters failed to receive activation signals. External AI control lines returned null. Citizens rushed to council halls for instruction, but none of the feeds worked. Lek opened a sealed cabinet in the rear of the control bay. He pulled a short-wave device. Obsolete, unlinked to the planetary net. "Send on local band," he told Halveer. "Anything, I don't care what, just send it." Halveer flipped the dials, locked the frequency, and spoke. "This is primary control. We've lost main systems. Requesting outside confirmation. Anyone reading, respond." The static didn't even click. Then the lights blinked red, then dark. "Backup batteries, gone." "Whatever this is," Lek said slowly, "it's not natural." The planet's orbital sensors had nothing to track. There were no ships, no attacks, no transmissions. The shield grid had just failed. Halveer checked a manual feed again. "We still don't have exterior comms. No satellites are online." Lek walked to the viewport. The sky above was black. No arcs, no grid lights, just empty night. He stared for 10 full seconds, then whispered, "We're alone." Is that message from Earth? Fleet Overseer Tran Velk stood at the core array terminal, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the static-ridden heads-up display. The Dominion's last functioning orbital relay had picked up a single burst. The signal didn't request terms. It wasn't encrypted. It played once, then embedded into the command loop as a permanent file. The file name read, _delivered. EXO. Sovereign Diak had sent it. He didn't use a broadcast tower. He didn't speak from a podium. The transmission originated from a micro-relay embedded into a debris fragment floating above Varnak's upper orbit. That piece of metal had once been part of a civilian refueling dock. It now served as Earth's final word. The message consisted of 5 seconds of silence, followed by a single spoken line. "This ends now." That was it. No signature, no emblem, just neutral Terran inflection spoken through a clean channel. The phrase repeated 3 times, then the file self-locked and looped without error across every open frequency in the Varnak defense net. What little remained of it. Belk turned to his adjutant. "Try patching to their diplomatic line." No handshake. "Alternate relay?" "Dead." In the orbital wreckage cloud, 6 Spectre vaults began slow dispersal. Their cores initiated deconstruction. Tethered relay struts detached, drifted, and scattered across local gravity zones. Each unit's final process included a logic cascade that irreversibly deleted internal sequences. Nothing recoverable. No traces left. Inside Earth's Strategic Operations Vault, Cadric Yorn logged the dispersal report. The entry read, Spectre chained, terminated. No commands followed, no celebration. Spectre was never meant to be glorified. It was cleanup. Sovereign Doc stood in the secondary observation deck, eyes fixed on the simulation window replaying Varnak's current orbital map. Several clusters of junk drifted uncoordinated, what remained of platforms once part of a planetary shield array. He spoke calmly into the audio recorder assigned for internal records. There were no weapons, no projectiles, no physical contact, only removal of function. He pressed the stop key. The Dominion's internal council, now huddled in a backup chamber inside the security citadel, tried sending out 5 separate distress signals, each routed through alternate paths. Merchant lanes, abandoned frequency spectrums, even old civil maintenance channels, all came back bounced or silent. Their diplomatic corps routed a formal request to Earth using an ancient contingency code created for War-Sera ceasefires. The system confirmed the transmission. No reply arrived. They sent another. No answer. 3 more attempts. Still nothing. From Varnak's surface, one of the tower engineers scanned the sky with a manual scope. He found no orbital signature, just blackness. Not even satellite flicker. We're being ignored, he whispered to himself. Within Earth's central archive hall, Oren Diklar closed the Spectre project file. It was locked again beneath triple encryption, sealed into cold storage. Access was now disabled by design. Boran Telsk signed off on the final page. Mission concluded. He didn't say more. Back on the Dominion capital, an internal message spread across local channels. It warned citizens not to panic. The leadership was addressing technical complications. No citizen believed it. Power had not returned. Network access was still frozen. Trade lanes hadn't reopened. Yet the only thing anyone talked about was the voice that repeated from broken speakers across dozens of towers. This ends now. One child reportedly repeated it aloud in the city center. Ernix's military regent demanded a formal response from Earth. He threatened economic reprisal. He cited treaties. He referenced mutual exploration rights. Nothing came back. Instead, one of the orbital debris fragments lit up as a new relay activated. A simple line displayed in clean block text across every device still capable of receiving input. This concludes our correction. No name, no title, no time code. And then, all transmission lines shut down. Sovereign Doc signed his name into the final log and looked out the window again. Leave them wondering. You sat them down at our borders, and now we're blind. Commander Vekproth slammed his hand on the Dominion Council table, knocking over 2 data slates. The projection above the room blinked in and out, recycled files that hadn't refreshed since the failure. Varnak capital feed remained dark, a static-topped map with only archived outlines of one sect of zones. High Lord Thrax Arkrul didn't flinch. He stood at the far end of the room, shoulders squared, voice measured. There was no military act of aggression. Earth used no weapons, no ships. We're dealing with a covert technology we haven't cataloged. They didn't need weapons. They turned our core systems into dead glass. Another voice came from the left dais. Advisor Kel Tan of the Inner Colonies. Communication is down across 13 sectors. Supply hubs on 3 secondary planets have reported food riots. The Southern Gate network on Dravier was overrun by civilians demanding immediate evacuation. We've lost orbital management in the outer crescents. Then tell me what we still control, Roth barked. Name one Dominion asset that's still functional beyond this room. No one answered. The table flickered again. A failed sync with the external archive triggered a blackout warning. The crest of the Dominion seal, once projected on every official display, cracked mid-loop. Its central arc line refused to load. Thrax turned toward the side panel. We still have ships. Ships don't matter if we can't guide them, Tan muttered. You lost us the grid. You forget your place, advisor. And you forgot that diplomacy isn't silence. Tan shot back. Earth never acknowledged a formal grievance. They didn't respond, they just shut us off. A junior fleet captain entered from the side bay, carrying a coded update. He placed it on the terminal, saluted without words, and left. Roth read the top line aloud. Fleet Order 17-9. Withdraw from Southern Quadrant. All vessels return to safe orbit or risk uncommanded drift. Threx narrowed his eyes. Who issued that? Redacted, Roth said, holding the slate higher. The sender ID is blocked. Then overwrite it. 3 seats away, Administrator Rel Vorik tapped into the remaining internal net. We've got council signals duplicating across 7 channels. No central control. Civil governors are issuing orders independent of the throne. If we don't reassert stability, this splits. Tan leaned forward. It's already split. Threx moved to the central console. He keyed in a priority signal to the throne chamber. No tone. No link. Go, he muttered. Outside the window, the triple moon arc had drifted out of alignment. Without automated orbit calibration, the moons would cause tidal anomalies across the planet's oceanic crust. The Dominion's capital sat near a plate hinge. Roth spoke low. We are losing gravitational control. Tan interrupted. And your only idea is to threaten Earth again? They committed an act of annihilation, Threx snapped. Very close to this. They didn't fire a single weapon. The chamber filled with a cold silence. Rel Vorik broke it. People aren't asking who attacked us, they're asking what we did to deserve it. The door opened again. A courier officer, eyes sunken, handed over a physical copy of the latest planetary broadcast transcript. A line at the top drew attention. Public perception rating Earth calculated, Dominion provoked. They're rewriting the narrative without even speaking, Tan whispered. Roth sat back. Because silence spreads faster than excuses. The wall behind them displayed a frozen feed of the Dominion crest. Broken, glitched. Threx's tone shifted. Then we rewrite it ourselves. How? Tan asked. Control the sectors that still hear us. You mean suppress dissent? I mean prevent collapse. A different voice rose from the rear. General Carvin Drawl, normally silent. It's too late. The outer systems have declared operational independence. They're forming regional command clusters. Threx turned to him. Then, crush them. With what power? Drawl tapped the table with one finger. You lost us our deterrent. You gave Earth every reason to ignore us. Now we're just a council sitting in a room with no power grid, no orbital control, and no voice. Tan stood. They didn't beat us in battle. They made battle irrelevant. Threx stared at him. So what's your answer? Tan pointed to the crest on the screen. Step down, let someone else pick up what's left. Threx didn't move. His face didn't shift. But the rest of the room did. Roth pushed his chair back. Vorik didn't argue. Drawl didn't raise a word. Threx turned away from them, looked toward the viewport and watched Varnek's orbit spiral slowly out of rhythm. Lock the archive. No future access without triple code consensus. Vorn Telsk stood alone beneath the data vault ceiling as the inner casing sealed. The panel's indicators dimmed until only one remained. An orange ring circling a core node that would never light again, unless War Protocol reactivated it. The Spectre directive was no longer running. It was stored, silent, archived like a tool placed back in its original slot, used then retired. The air in the vault stayed still. No movement, no climate shift. Systems inside this chamber used no ambient displays. Everything was physical. Etched plates, hard data, analog redundancies. No one without authorization could even find this level, let alone tamper with its history. Telsk initiated the final log. Log entry, Executor Vorin Telsk, Directive Spectre Termination Record. He spoke clearly, calm, deliberate. Ornek lost all planetary infrastructure within the designated timing window. Spectre vaults functioned within acceptable deviation limits. Entropy cascade was successful. Zero detected interception. All units have self-deleted. Mission concluded. He paused, then switched to personal record mode. They didn't fall because we overpowered them. They fell because they never imagined we'd stop talking. Telsk walked past the primary table and placed his hand against the secured relay plate. It verified his identity, then retracted the core from the data column. A block, smooth and inert, now held the entire record of Spectre's existence. Tactics, deployment history, response simulations. All of it would remain sealed. He placed the block inside the legacy drawer. Outside the vault, Earth's orbital station grid showed full alignment. Defense networks remained active but idle, no escalation triggered, no secondary response planned. The system was quiet, steady, monitored but not threatened. In the command observation deck, Kadric Yorn reviewed the live feed from Varnak's exo ring. Orbital debris still floated over the dark planet, scattered into slow drift. Nothing powered, no energy spikes, no movement from the surface. The last civilian broadcast from the Dominion had been recorded 13 hours ago. It never finished. He turned to the side feed. Council grids collapsed. No sector coordination. No rallying factions. Sovereign Dak responded from the lower bay, tone steady. They aren't looking for us. They're looking at each other. Telsk stepped into the briefing room. The few Terran staff present rose, but he waved them back down. No retaliation expected, he said. Doc nodded. They haven't rebuilt anything, not a single tower, not even a relay dish. Telsk said. Earth. Because they don't know how. The table remained bare, no data loaded, nothing projected. All records had been finalized before this meeting. He leaned forward, laced his fingers, and spoke low. Never underestimate how fragile a system becomes when it relies on being feared but doesn't prepare to be ignored. No one replied. They didn't need to. Outside, the Earth orbital layer displayed no defensive posture. Patrol routes ran minimal. No new Spectre units had been commissioned. There was no need. The message had already spread. Without speeches, without fleets, without anyone raising their voice. In one wing of the civilian assembly, memorial walls continued construction. One entire section bore the names of those lost on Lorne Axis 3, carved into polished basalt slabs. At the base of each nameplate, the words, "Correction delivered." A child stopped to trace a single name. No cameras filmed him. He read the plaque quietly, then left. Back inside the classified zone, Telsk finished his final log. He chose to massacre civilians. They thought Earth would scream. They expected negotiations, protests, threats. He activated the record lock. He replied without any of those. The screen confirmed archive seal. Spectre directive, closed. Yorn turned toward the outer viewport. How long do you think it'll hold? Telks answered immediately. We weren't hoping it would hold. We made sure they couldn't challenge it. Sovereign Dek looked at both men and asked the last question. Was it justice? Telsk didn't blink. It was instruction. He stood, stepped back toward the vault's final gate and placed his hand on the last input panel. A lock slid closed with an audible mechanical shift. No more activation. Ever? Yorn asked. Unless someone decides to forget what happened. He reached the exit. As the doors began to seal behind him, he spoke the final line without turning back. We were never unprepared.